All right, it's 8 o'clock on the dot. Well, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's 9 o'clock on the dot in Guyana, all across Guyana, right? So, welcome to Straight Up. Right away, spread the word, share the link. I have two guests this evening. The regional chairman of Region Number 10. He's back again. I found him. I went all the way to Linden. In fact, I jumped in a minibus and I said, hey, you've got to come in the studio with us. So, Darren Adams, the regional chairman for Region Number 10, is with us. I have lots of questions for him. Lots of questions. And I also have with us, Dr. David Hines, the Buxtonian. Dr. David Hines, for some serious political discussions right here on 107.1 FM. Straight up. Spread the word. Share the link. We'll be right back with David Hines and Darren Adams.
until I soaking wet. Rub your body, show no mercy, because I'm feeling tipsy, I'm feeling freaky. I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Let me rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub and love. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
All right, hey, guess what? Welcome to Straight Up. My name is Mark Benchap. We're going to rock and roll. It's just 8 minutes after 9 o'clock in beautiful, beautiful Guyana. We're going to rock and roll for just about an hour, and then we will make our exit. You know, sometimes we go a little over the hour, but that's when things get really spicy. I suspect that this evening is going to be spicy. It's already spicy because I noticed, you know, we always have to pick on our operator, Lemon, who put these ads up there. Don't want to show my face. I think he just is on the verge of being fired again for the 15th time. Maybe next time around, instead of getting a Lemon, we will just probably have to get somebody. I'll ask Dr. David Hines if he can put me onto somebody in Buxton who can be a reliable operator, because I'm told that Buxtonians don't make joke. They're reliable. So Lemon, watch it. I'm not going to tell you guys what part of Guyana Lemon is from, but Lemon is coming across lazy. And we know the Buxtonians aren't lazy. They stopped a train. They almost picked that train up. They almost run with that train to Georgetown, run with it back to Linden. The Buxtonians don't make joke, you know. Well, the original Buxtonians. Well, long-time Buxtonians. I don't know what's happening now, but Dr. David Hines, who is in the border, the middle like of long-time and modern Buxtonian, but he's here with us this evening. He hasn't been on with us for a long time. And let's do what we usually do, as we ask you to share the link. We only ask you once, twice, or maybe thrice. That's it. We don't go to the fourth time at all. We just don't do that. You know what I mean? Now, look here. What is it? Village Voice, right? I was listening to an interesting show with Dr. David Hines. It's called Political 101. And he had an interesting guest, Conrad Lincoln Lewis, veteran trade unionist, was on, and they had a superb show. I hope some of you guys would have been able to watch it. And they were talking about the Village Voice. They were talking about financing stuff, because you know what we've got to do as a group. got to help each other out. So Dr. David Hines will talk a little bit about this in terms of how you guys could even subscribe to the Village Voice, even if it's $2, even if it's $3, even if I got to take $5 out of Lemon's salary every week to help to keep this Village Voice, this newspaper. It's a worthy cause. It's worth every cent that you will contribute towards it, because they have a staff to pay. They have writers to pay. Well, just like we do here at Benchop Radio. But I'm pushing for this, the Village Voice. Notice I'm not asking for anything for us here at 107. You know, Dr. David Hines will do all of that asking when he comes on. Right? All right. So we also have with us, I know you want to see my face, right? But before you get to see my face, I know you're dying to see my face, especially the Buxtonians, Miss Booker and all of them. But let's touch on this guy here, Peter Headley. The DPP has ordered an inquest. Months now, this guy was murdered by a member of the Guyana Police Force. Murdered by a member of the Guyana Police Force. And each time these cases happen, especially when it comes to police murders, guess what they do? They ensure that they fidget with the report, so that when that report gets to the DPP will have to keep sending back the report, sending back the report, sending back the report. Because we know what they do with that report. They do not want things to go right. And that is exactly what they're doing also with the Orrin Boston case. The Orrin Boston case, it has been months now since that young businessman, here he is, thank you, Lemon, that young businessman was actually murdered by members. And I'm not saying one member, because the members, the group, all of them should be charged with murder of this man, this young businessman, Orrin Boston. No justice, no nothing, and everybody, including those folks in the opposition, those who are now running for leader of the party, they were all over the place. They were talking, oh, this is wrong, and it all died. Nobody seems to be talking about this any longer. Mr. Opposition Leader, where are you? Where is your voice on this particular issue? Where is your voice on the Peter Headley issue? Where is your voice? Because I'm saying, because you are the opposition leader. And this has nothing to do with Congress coming up, and Benja probably has some horse. I don't have any horse in the race. I don't. I just don't. I wish I could have gotten in the race. Seriously. And you've got to see my face when I say that. Oh, yes. Good evening to all of you. I wish David Hines could have gotten in that race, but David Hines is a WPA, right? How many members the WPA? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And David Hines made 5. Dr. Hines, good evening. You know I like to rub you guys in the WPA. How are you doing, sir?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm quite well, thank you, sir. I don't know what is happening. Can you hear me? Are you hearing me clear enough?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Welcome back to Straight Up. You haven't been on with us for a while. You ran away. You said you're doing your own thing in Buxtonian, in Political 101, all sorts of things. And I've been watching you. But your Buxtonians, the listeners that we have here, are loyal listeners indeed. And they've been asking for you to come back. I said, no, let him stay over at Political 101. Let him stay at CAMS TV. We don't want him here on 107.1 FM. And they forced me to have you on. So welcome back again, sir. How have you been?
Thank you very much. The power of the people.
Exactly. How have you been?
I'm surviving, you know how it goes when you're in this thing. You got to wake up every morning and say, Lord, give me strength to face another day. You see, I know my Christian thing. you know.
Now that's actually a reggae. Oh Lord, give me strength to face another day. Right? And I know something too. GT Root Girl knows something too. They're saying there's no song. I don't know. Let's get this straight. 1 second, please, Doc. Are you guys hearing us loud and clear? I know it's GT Root Girl's birthday, so I want to wish her a happy birthday. I think I saw some folks wishing her that. Michelle Lampkin and all the crew, good evening to all of you. Booker, Denise Booker, good to see you back. Dr. Hines laugh. These Bostonians, Lord give me strength to face another day. That is Luciano, man.
Luciano.
Oh,
Lord,
God, how could we miss that, man? Well, you thought, and he's not a Bostonian, mind you.
And he's a yardie, but close enough.
He's from Quarantine. Quarantine. All right. Good evening to all of you, loud and clear. Thank you guys so much. Do share the link. Share the link because we want this to be able to spread wide and far. We're still awaiting the arrival of the regional chairman of region number 10, that is Deron Adams. We got some questions, at least I have some questions on behalf of the people to Deron Adams. He was on with us. He came back off. He came back on. I don't know. But before we begin, again, let me welcome our guest. Dr. David Hines is with us. Dr. Hines, before you came on, I was actually talking about the DPP recommending that there should be an inquest into the death of Peter Headley, who was murdered by a member of the Guyana Police Force. After that murder, everybody remained quiet, including those guys in the opposition who should be kicking up rumpus, as we would say. They've been very quiet. And then another murder, police at the hands of policemen of Oran, Boston. The opposition kicked up a stink for 2 mornings, 24 hours. They claimed that they were fighting and they were ready to put boots on the ground and all sorts of things. And then nothing. It died a natural death. What's happening, Dr. David Hines? Talk.
Well, political parties have limitations. You and I know that. We have messed around with political parties all our lives, and that is why some of us, we are members of political parties, but we also are activists in our own right, because there are things that political parties cannot and do not deal with, because political parties are always counting votes and counting money. Right? And where votes are compromised and money are compromised, they stop there. So they do not, as parties, really get down to the nitty-gritty of representation and advocacy. And that is why there is need for those of us who are political activists. We are the ones who have to carry the burden of dealing with the real nasty issues, meaning the issues that you have to get down into the ground and fight and dirty yourself. Political parties don't like to dirty themselves. And so it is not surprising that the major political parties and the opposition, they make noise about whenever people die. We can go back to the Henry brothers, all right? The Henry cousins, sorry. You remember the protests that came out, the indigenous protest that came out. It was the leader of a political party that called off that protest, And we hear supporters of that very political party quarrel and your show and my show and all the shows. Oh my, the political leaders are not doing anything, and so on and so forth and so on. But when the people are doing things, the leaders of your party call the thing off. Right? And the reason we don't get anything going on is because the political parties don't like that thing. Because once you go out on the streets, and I believe that all people should be on the streets. The time has come.
Dr. Hines, in 2001, during that time, 2000, 2001, 2002, people weren't afraid to hit the streets.
Right.
The political leader at that time, opposition leader, Desmond Hoyt, even though we knew in the beginning he didn't really like the streets.
Right.
It was actually the people forced him to hit the streets. And we saw that sort of struggle, that sort of protest against the then PPP regime. It was a success story. I still, deep down in my heart, I do believe that Desmond Hoyt, the PNC, won the 2001 general and regional elections. But you have mentioned, sorry, I see here that Lemon is signaling that the regional chairman for Region 10 was on, and then he's back off again. I don't know if it's internet problem, but yeah. Quickly before we get to the regional chairman of Region 10, Mr. Darren Adams, you mentioned that political parties, they love money, but they don't necessarily like to hit the streets. They don't like to fight in the streets. And we're not talking about physical fight. They just don't like those sort of things. We experienced that in Linden. You know, you were in Linden too. You were with your boots on the ground in Linden. The political party, the leadership of the PNC didn't really like what was happening there. Why do you suppose, especially the PNC / APNU, now AFC, why do you think they do not like the streets and boots on the ground?
Because you know, they're fighting to get into office. And if you're fighting to get into office, then it means that all kinds of interests are going to come to you and say, look, we're going to give you money, we're going to give you resources, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. And once they give you resources, once they give you the money, then they're asking you for something in return. So businesses are going to say, look, man, if you go onto the streets, this thing could break out, get nasty, and people can loot, and people can this, and people can keep people off the streets and from coming in to our businesses. And so therefore, we would urge you not to go onto the streets. So political parties become captive of businesses and other special interests. I am sure that there are leaders inside of the political parties who would like to go onto the streets, who would like to be militant, but they are compromised by these interests that invest in them. And so therefore they become captive of special interests. And I think that is the major reason that they don't like to go onto the streets and fight in the streets. And then some of them, a minority of them, are ideologically against street protest because they see it as hooliganism. You know, it's a kind of class thing that poor people only, they're emotional and they can only fight up and they don't deal with reason and so on. There is a tiny minority.
Black people, when black people hit the streets, there is that description about them. Let's face reality. When the PPP, when they were in the opposition, they didn't seem to care. They hit the streets. They did whatever they had to do. Why the contrast?
Because the PPP as a party is more adept at straddling the various interests. The PPP itself is captive of business interests. But it's also bold enough to say to those businesses, the thing that you don't want, the street protest you don't want, is what is going to give us power. So the PPP plays the business interests and balances that with what it has to do politically. I think the parties on our side are less adept at that balancing. It's either one or the other. It's either they go full flow on the streets, which they don't like to do, or they decide, I'm not going on the streets, I'm going to be captive of these.
We will get back to the streets. We will get back to that, because I recall in 2002, late 2002, 1 day or 1 hour after Desmond Hoyt passed away, then leader of the opposition, we heard some supporters of the PNC, were thinking, and they were pleased, not that Desmond Hoyt died, that the next person in line to take over, Robert Corbyn, will take the fight to the PPP. Something happened, because years now after, we are still waiting to see that fight. Before we get back to hitting the streets and so forth, let's welcome the Honorable Chairman of Region number 10, Mr. Darren Adams, who has been absent for a while. The other day I asked whether Mr. Adams was still residing in Linden. Somebody sent me a photo of his house. Somebody sent me a photo of him in his office. Somebody sent me a photo with him in the streets working, right? Good to see you, Mr. Chairman. How are you and how have you been?
Good night, Mark. Are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Okay, I'm good. Been busy, been fighting, When it's not in the streets, it's in the office. It's perusing, financial matters to ensure that we keep this government, this installed regime on their toes. A lot of irregularities have been popping up. And so, our councillors have been working diligently, flagging projects in communities across the region to ensure that we continue to get, that we get value for money, I should say.
Well, good to hear that. Good to hear that you guys are flagging certain things and ensure that you in the region get value for money. There's a big thing I want to ask you about, especially about this contract that was recently awarded to some folks. Before we get to that, what are two success stories that you can tell our listeners right now about Region Number 10 under your watch?
Well, Mark, I must say that we have been able to push ahead with our program. We have been able to engage the diaspora, the private sector, our partners in the US, because recognizing that we cannot depend on this government and we are not getting support from them, and based on the challenges we currently face, we had to find and we had to embark on solutions on how we could empower and address the needs of our people. And so, recognizing what we were up against over the past 12 months, we have decided that going forward, we have to, as I mentioned earlier, engage the diaspora on how we can consolidate and I must say improve our capacities and potential to directly speak to addressing socioeconomic challenges within the region. And so we would have recently launched the Regional Economic Advancement Partnership, where we engage persons in the diaspora who want to invest in the region. We have managed to meet with an investor who came in and is trying to set up a garment factory. He has already secured a 1,000 market for 1,000 scrubs in the medical field. And so we were trying to, we sent out a notice, applications for persons to come and do the trials, and it was successful. And so we now, the investor is now proceeding with registering of his company so that our people here in Region 10 can produce these garments and whether it's school uniforms and so on, and create employment. It's a multi-million-dollar investment. Beside that, we just completed a policy document for farm-to-water access for farmers. It's a project, I think, by the IDB, where we're trying to ensure that farmers, one of the complaints is that while they are involved in agriculture, and we know it holds great potential to create jobs, access to water irrigation is an issue. And so we just completed a policy document that will speak to the design and the plan aim at impacting on an increasing delivery of water irrigation water to farms here in Region 10. Of course, we've been pushing ahead with ICT. We were saddened when many of our young people who were trained in ICT, while they would have been employed at the National Data Management Agency under the David Granger administration, and the then government would have invested over 120 million in the call center and completed it. This installed regime would have attempted to take the credit for that building. But this project was approved since in 2018 under CATIUs. It was completed, and we have to push and ensure that young people who participated in those foundation courses in information and communication technology would have been employed at that facility. And so we're happy that some of them have been employed. They're not 100% comfortable. I've been getting reports of the company, but we're hopeful that things can iron out and that the company can recognize that they must respect workers, our young people, and ensure that the opportunities that were provided to them between the period 2015 to 2020, that we can continue to build upon those successful things that we would have achieved then.
All right, well said. Thank you so much for giving us that quick rundown as to some of the developments in Linden, and to remind our listeners that those are things that uh, birthed under the coalition. It's a pity that a lot more things weren't done, but we still give them a little credit. Dr. David Hines is with us, as you know, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Hines, do you have any quick question for him? Because we can co-host this evening. Any quick question?
Yeah, Mr. Adams, we had the worrying news coming out of Region 10, where we understand that contracts are being given to known supporters of the PPP. And uh, how is your council dealing with this case of contracts not going through the normal bidding system, the normal system, because there is no procurement commission in place? How are you all dealing with that there?
Well, what I can say is that we have flagged a number of projects. Very early, I reported on Garden Mosley, where 70% of the contracts that were awarded in the region did not go to residents in the Region 10 area. If you check the bid documents and those who are awarded projects, they're either from Region 6, the East Coast, Georgetown, and they're coming and executing, and mind you, doing it at a substandard manner. They're in the region. There was the process at the tender board level, I must say, was compromised. We were not afforded the opportunity to identify our reps who should sit on that tender board. The RDC would normally identify 2 persons. What you had is the minister selecting the persons who are currently on the board. And so we quickly recognized that the entire process would have been compromised. And so there is no fairness there. And I dare say that the RDC, and particularly those controlled by the coalition, are between a rock and a hard place. While their democratic credentials exist, the authority to their, for example, their budgetary allocations and their determined projects and the priorities for the region we are not given the opportunity to deal with those things. We're seeing that supporters of the current administration, close friends, being awarded 3-4 contracts, and many of them deviating from the scope of works, many of them not following. So we're getting substandard works. A road that was finished just a week ago has already started to deteriorate. And so the structural integrity on a number of projects that we would have enjoyed from 2015 to 2020, clearly we have seen a deviation from that. And we're seeing many of the projects going to people who are not, they have never even built a yard hut. But because they are associated and affiliated to the government, they are getting these projects. And so it's an unfair process. But we continue to monitor them. Our councillors were out in the field flagging many of the projects, and we will continue to expose the corruption that is happening in the administration.
Mark, if I may ask one more question.
Go ahead, Doc. It's okay.
I remember, Mr. Adams, during the time of the struggles in 2012, it was revealed that unemployment was extremely high in Linden and Region 10 in general. I mean, people were talking about like 75% unemployment at that time. I know since then the coalition government came into power, and they would have made some attempts to deal with that question. What is the situation with unemployment now in the region?
Well, what I can say to you is that the PPP has returned to its old policies of basically starving the APNU AFC stronghold of resources, and they are discriminating against communities like Linden, Kokwani, Aichuni, basically those communities that support the coalition and who do not support them. You know that under the coalition, jobs were created. We had the patient care assistant program that Walter Lawrence had control over, and it created 60 young people who were employed in that program. You had 120 young people who were trained in ICT, and then they were employed in the National Data Management Agency. If you calculate their salary over a 5-year period, it's 100 million that has been taken out from the region. You had the sustainable livelihood and entrepreneur development that many of our young people benefited from. The Linden Enterprise Network would have received an injection of 150 million by the coalition government. We have seen the suspension of that board. We have seen no emphasis placed on agriculture. As I mentioned earlier, it holds great potential to create jobs here. We have seen them dismantled that program. We have still attempted to incorporate ICT somewhat in agriculture so that young people, because we recognize that you cannot go to that sector through the traditional means, you have to utilize technology and other means to get young people attracted and wanting to come on board. And that is why we were stunned by this government, who would have, when they took office, the debt ceiling, they would have increased it from 150 billion, they increased it to 500 billion, and the external debt ceiling, they increased it from 400 billion to 600 billion. Yet, with all of this massive borrowing, we have seen many of the empowerment programs and those programs that were geared at creating employment, the Borcham Collins College, that many young people here were being trained, and they were going to transition into working at the Regional Democratic Council and other places. All this has been dismantled in just a few months. And even if they attempt to start their own businesses, you have the agency that they were depending on for funding, places like the Linden Enterprise Network, the board not being, the life of the board coming to an end. You see Small Business Bureau being invited to the region, and when you check who are the persons being invited to the meeting, they're all supporters of the PPP, Indians, who do not even meet the criteria. They don't have the NIS, they don't have the GRA, they don't have the business are not even registered. And Afro-Guyanese who have fulfilled the criteria are being left out from these programs that can provide a pathway for empowerment for them.
Mr. Adams, let me just ask, and we got your point loud and clear. And if I can read Dr. David Hines' mind a little, correct me if I'm wrong, is that all of these things that the PPP is doing, they're going into Linden, they're doing this, Region 10 that is, and Linden, of course. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're discriminating, and all of these things. Meanwhile, the leadership of Linden and the people in the region are sitting by and allowing the PPP to do this all over again without a fight?
Well, Mark, let me say this.
Sure.
We have been keeping our base informed of everything. One of the things that we're concerned about, and I am personally concerned about it, is that many of the projects that was conceptualized and started under the coalition, the PPP is hoping that residents of Region 10 bite the bait. So, for example, when you had nurses and doctors and healthcare workers being locked out of the healthcare facilities because of a mandatory vaccine position, they were hoping that the residents came out and did what they did in 2012, which was to block the bridge there at Wismar. Mind you, under the coalition and in the concept document for the development for the region with that highway, there was a clause that spoke to stability in the region. So on the eve when we were having the consultants, the final consultant before the project go to tender, you had Region 10 was the only region that they locked out nurses and placed handcuffs on the gate, while Region 6 and 4 and 3 and all the other regions, persons were allowed to continue to enter the facility. So they were attempting to bait the residents as a reason to say why the project that was started on under the coalition to pave that road from Linden to Muburo should not proceed and should be diverted through another route. Now, I want economic activity to come to this region. There must be another strategy. The same thing that you used in 2012, while it worked, I believe that we cannot be played or bite the same bait and give them a reason to say why they diverted that road. Because these are investments that were made by the coalition government. And so there are other methods that we can use. We've been writing to the various international agencies. We wrote on, for example, the matter with the Board of Guardians, where they dismantled a board that was here, install a board where all 8 members are Indo-Guyanese, supporters of the PPP, and they are starting to take off people, innocent people, people with disability, people who suffered stroke, a woman, from public assistance. And so we have been writing and engaging the people in the diaspora and the various embassies, bringing it to their attention.
You know, Mr. Darren Adams, it's okay to sit and write and to bring things to their attention, international agencies and so forth. But when people hit the ground and make sacrifices, trust me, a lot more comes out of that. Dr. David Hines, take a bite at something, what the chairman has just said.
Well, yes. I mean, the chairman, of course, as the chairman of the region, I guess he's speaking in that capacity. But the question wants him to speak in the capacity as a member of the political party, member of the PNC. And we don't expect the regional chairman, as the regional chairman, to ask people to go to the street, but we expect the party for which the people voted in great numbers to say that what is being done is wrong. What is your party saying? And I'm asking you that question now, I'm not as regional chairman, but as a member of the ruling party. If people voted for your party and all these things that you mentioned just now, what is the party doing?
Well, if you would have recognized, you would have noticed that a number of protest actions would have happened across the country. Here in Region 10, we also held a number of protest action. You look at an example like with Rudy Small, for example.
When you say we, are you talking about the party itself, or the people got up one morning and say, enough is enough, and citizens who are not connected to the party? The question from Dr. Hines is, what is your party doing, sir? The leadership of your party?
I am saying to you that they are, and if you look at cases where, and I can't honestly answer and say why they stopped, why certain actions stopped, but look at the case when in Berbice, when Isaiah and the other young man were killed. We came out, we protested. We went and protested with our nurses. We came out, we protested with healthcare workers. And so I agree with you that there should be more action countrywide, but people always look to Region 10 to start the spark. And I'm saying that the time has come for every other base to stand on its own and to hold their end of the government up to fight too. Stop depending only on Region 10. We will do our part. We have our people. We have been connecting with them. We hear them. We have been holding meetings with them. But every other region needs to get on board and support us as well. You can't only depend on Region 10 to deliver this.
Dr. Hines, can't depend on Region 10 to deliver this at all. And even when the people want to deliver it, their leaders within their own party is saying, hey, go back home and sleep. Take up your Bible or your Quran or your Bhagavad Gita and pray, and everything will be all right. Go home, get off the streets now, and nothing is achieved. And that is where the PPP, you know it, Dr. Hines, you've been in this game for a long time, that the PPP loves when people go home and sleep. They walk in there with the people and they ransack the entire community. It is happening in Linden all over again. I don't know. This contract with the school, we've noticed that you said that you've been bypassed. But we also know that you've met with the contractors and so forth and so on. What's happening, Mr. Chairman, with this particular contract? Are you for it, against it, or what?
I am not for the contract. In fact, I am in no way friends with the contractors. I don't know them.
But you
But
guys,
I'm not good.
you guys, 1 second. You guys met today, right? And Shanghai is a popular guy in Linden. You know Shanghai, though, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it's not like you don't know them. You know Shanghai. Continue. Your take on this contract.
So let me say this. You will never hear Darren Adams turning down a project for a school to be built in a region. More so a project that was conceptualized in 2017 under the coalition. And this is not the first school that was placed on the agenda for the coalition. We would have constructed the Bamia Nursery School, which within the past 2 months has been left without any care by this government, and we have seen it being vandalized, a brand new school. We would have constructed the Christianburg Primary School, the Wizrock Nursery School started under or was conceptualized under the coalition, the Wiruni Nursery School in the Berbice River, and now, of course, the Bami Amelia's Ward School, which was started at least at the consultancy stage in 2017. And so I know that monies were allocated to the tune of some 300 plus million under the coalition, but for some reason the process was stalled, and I believe maybe it was when Charan Das did what he did. A lot of projects were put on hold, and then there was some issue as well with the consultancy firm objecting. But I am for a school being built in Region 10. We understand, and I want you to know that when the 19,000 plus persons went out to the polls, they voted and the coalition won Region 10. We are the regional government here. We set the agenda. They might not want to invite us to the table, but we will flag every project. We will scrutinize it. We will ensure that those things that were started by the coalition, that there is room for continuity. So whether there is the synthetic track, whether it's ICT hubs being built across the region, whether it's ensuring that the technical institute is completed and the farm to market road from Millie's Hideout to the Berbice River is continued. All of those projects that they inherited from the coalition, we must see it completed.
All right, so let's get back to this school here. Thank you for letting our listeners know exactly what's going on, and you guys are going to keep flogging those contracts. But you complained a few days ago that you were not consulted. But you met today along with your team, with the contractors. We see the contractors there with your team, that's you there in that gray jacket. What was this meeting about? What was it like? What was the conclusion?
Okay, so I had just completed a meeting with principals from the U.S. Embassy, and I got a call while I was in that meeting that the technical people and the contractor were in Linden to do a site visit and wanted to meet with me. I said to them that I will not meet with them in the office privately, but I will allow them to come to the statutory meeting. I will suspend the standing orders so that the other members and the chair of the education committee and all of the other councillors, the chairman of the works committee, can ask questions. And they had valid questions that they posed to them. Was the project a part of a tender process? Who were the other contractors in the process? Were you the lowest bidder, or was it a selective? Will the consultancy firm present a plan to the council? Will we have boots on the ground? Will we have our independent people being allowed a site visit? Will we have monthly updates of this project? What projects have you constructed over the past 5 years? What projects are you currently doing? Do you have the equipment to do this project, or do you have to sublet it out to some other contractor? And I can tell you from the answers that we got, I personally believe that this is a slush fund in a way being created for the PPP. So they selected these two persons who are close to them, and they anticipate and I want to say this publicly, that we may likely go to a snap elections. And so they are finding ways in which they can create slush funds so that they can start mobilizing and saving up for when that time comes. But we grilled them. It was not a
Well, it looks like the chairman is having internet problem. We want him to call again. We want him to. Okay, sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead. We have you
sorry
back.
about that. Yeah. So in the meeting, you could have heard one of the principals. I can't remember his name, indicating that he was scared and fearful based on some of the questions that were being asked him. I don't know why, but if you listen to the recording, you will hear him saying that. But our primary focus there was to grill them to ensure that in the end, for example, we asked a question: will this school, because it's being started from foundation up, for the, it's not a building that is being
this is the design.
Yeah. So we
Yeah,
asked a question. We asked a question: will this school be built to accommodate students? Recognizing that we're in a COVID-19 pandemic, will it be built with the protocols in place for COVID-19? Will ICT facilities be in place there for children who want to access learning in another, utilizing technology? The teachers want to connect with them if they can't appear in person. And so we asked a number of questions. I'm not satisfied with a lot of the answers I got. And I'm concerned because I don't believe the contractor has built anything to this magnitude. They boasted about some place they built at some some park, fun park that they have, but nothing in relation to, in the context of a school that will house our children. And so we have our concern, but again, it's as a project that started under the coalition. It speaks to education. And in that context, we have to give our support for that school because it's something that we want.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adams. Dr. David Hines, your take on what you've just heard. The chairman has met with the contractors and so forth. The chairman seemed to be satisfied. Not satisfied with a lot of things, but he's on board because this is a project that birthed under the coalition. Your take on all of this, sir?
Well, yes. As chairman of the region, the chairman has to carry out his function. He has to ensure that he brings jobs, brings projects to his region. But of course, he's put in a funny position of having to work with what he himself is calling an installed government, and I certainly don't envy the position that he finds himself in. But if I may ask Mr. Adams, as you move around the region, what are you hearing from the people on the ground? Are they satisfied with your stewardship of the region? Are they satisfied with their own quality of life over the last year?
Well, I can say to you that if you go on the RDC page, you will see many of the comments that our supporters and residents here would have been leaving. I remember going to the Berbice River, and a gentleman came out and he shook my hands. He said, "I'm happy to see you," because not very often over the past 15 years have we seen a regional chairman and councillors coming and overnight in the Berbice River, because we went into the Berbice River, we visited all the communities there, we listened to the concerns of the people, and we brought it back to the council where we passed it, and we asked the administration to execute on those projects. Where it becomes difficult is that even in the executing of those projects, when we push for residents in those communities, like for example, Wiruni, the Tushawa had to intervene in a matter there where when they had the Amerindian elections, the Tushawa elections, they had persons who were trying to install somebody who is affiliated to the PPP. And the Tushaw called me. I quickly intervened in the matter. They were trying to say that he had a criminal charge and he couldn't run in the elections. And what I did is ask him to go and get a police clearance along with signatures of all the residents who supported him. Today, he is the Tushaw for Waruni. And so in every community, look at Block 22, you had a situation where the residents were protesting because they embarked on a CDC project, they executed the project, and then you had principals of the government who, one of them, his wife, is the treasurer to the said group, attempting to siphon off funds from the Community Development Council. And when the group objected to it, they withheld the check. They attempted to dictate to the people who should cash the check and how the money should think. And the people had said no. They protested. We supported them. They received the money. The persons were paid. And then the treasurer, who was trying to embed herself into the process and corrupt the entire process, resigned from it. Then recently we had the minister coming up for local government and saying to the group that the treasurer who resigned must still be able to identify who the new treasurer must be. And because we objected to that, they're saying that they will not support or give any funding to that CDC group in Block 22. And these are the challenges that we are experiencing. You look at the case where there are teachers during a pandemic who are in the RDC houses. Some of them, and I'll give an example, Vanessa Kissoon, who is being targeted because she's speaking out against the government. They are attempting to evict her from that property. And so we as a council quickly put together a resolution. We moved that motion that we will not endorse such a position during COVID-19. We have asked for the register for all of the RDC assets to show who are in those properties, because there are PPP persons who are in those properties that were not sent letters. This is not happening in any other region, but you're targeting Vanessa Kissoon because she's vocal and speaking out. And we will stand with her. And we wrote on the matter, we passed it at the council, and we said to them that we will object to this, and we will you know, in all costs, put up a fight against it.
All right, let's head back to the contract of the school.
Yeah.
During your meeting with the contractors, were you able to get from them the amount of folks who will be employed, not just minimum wage or a little cook up a box of food money, good employment where people will not be taken advantage of or robbed or so forth?
Yeah.
And what about businesses in that that region being part of this whole contract, and not to see outside businessmen coming in with truckloads of stuff or whatever when those same items can be purchased in the region?
Well, let me say this. During the discussion, I asked the question, how many persons do you intend to employ on this project? And one of the councillors got up and said, well, we hope that at least 50% of the people are employed. And I interjected and I said, no, 80% of the people from this region must be employed, not 50%.
What was
80%.
the response? And what was the response?
Shanghai, if you listen to the recording, Shanghai and the other fellow said, yes, we can assure you that 80% of the people will be employed. I then asked them, I said, in your employment, when you decide to proceed with it, prepare a schedule with the names, the contact numbers, and the addresses of all the employees, because I would like to see it when I come on site to see if indeed these are persons from the region. I understand if you have your technical people who you will have to bring in, and they might come from Georgetown, and because you might say that you don't want anybody who might mess up your roof or whatever. So fine, you're allowed to have your technical people and your experts, but the semi-skilled and the other people, and even some skilled people, because we have the talent in the country, must be employed. And I have been assured that that percentage will be 80% people coming from Linden.
Before Dr. Hines asks the final question, because you did say that you have another engagement, and we appreciate your time, Mr. Chairman. The question in terms of 80% and so forth, I'm told that a lot of the businesses there in Linden are owned like hardware stores and so forth. Most of those businesses, if not all, are owned by persons who live outside of the region. Just recently probably went in there to start these sort of businesses. How accurate is that?
Can you repeat that for me, Mark?
In terms of hardware stores and so forth, are a
Yeah.
lot of those hardware stores owned by Lindeners or outsiders?
We have hardware stores that are owned by Lindeners. You have Bella Lumberyard. You have Bolo's Variety, Sing Cash and Carry. All of these stores sell hardware materials. And so it is expected.
And you also have Bovell, I believe, right?
Boville.
Across the Mackenzie there next to churches. Is that a hardware
Well,
store?
no, that's not hardware.
Okay, sorry.
That's not hardware. But we have stores here that they can buy these things from. And it is expected that we hope that they will engage these people so that they can also be a part of the process.
Dr. David Hines, anything else for Mr. Chairman before he leaves us this evening?
Yes, I want to ask him what is perhaps a sensitive question, but I will ask him nevertheless because I think it will say something about his leadership. Factionalism is not new to Linden. It is not new to our political process. It's not new to the regional system. We saw in Region 4, we have seen in Region 4 that there is factionalism even between two parties in the coalition. And I know you all have factionalism of the party, the PNC in Linden. Has that factionalism seeped in to the council? And if so, how have you handled it as the chairman?
I don't. One of the first things that I embarked on and that I wanted to achieve, and it is actually what I use to guide me is that my vision is one which is to bring our people together and to strengthen them from the community level. And I have reached across the divide. Yes, there are persons who have people they favor, but I can say to you that I'm a friend of everyone. And we've managed to unite everyone, that if you look at the pictures when we're going out into the community, you will see me engaging, whether it's with a Gordon Calendar, whether it is with a Vanessa Kisoon, a Sharma Solomon, whoever it is. I have extended the olive branch and they have responded. And the only enemy in the eyes of me and the people in Region 10 is the PPP.
Thank you very much. And I think I sense that from a distance because I have a sense of Linden and how it operates. And it's not the easiest of place to deal with because people are very independent minded. And I got the sense that since you've taken office, that factionalism has not really become a big issue. So I'm very glad for that answer.
Mr. Chairman, is there anything that you'd want our listeners to know about what's happening in that region that we didn't ask you this evening? Here's your chance, sir.
Well, Mark, to the point is that Region 10 and all other regions that are supported by the coalition, where they got a victory, I believe, and the people need to notice that we are being targeted intentionally and strategically, and residents are facing systemic discrimination here in the region. But we will continue to stand for them, to represent them at the various levels, and to ensure that in everything that we do, we let them know that the 19,000 plus people that voted for us, that we will represent you and we will at all times defend your best interests. You know, it's difficult getting resources. Just if I can tell you, and many people will, and I believe it's an attempt to stifle my engagement with communities. My driver just got fired. No one knows why, but it is an attempt to target me.
Who fired your driver? Who has that authority to fire your driver?
Well, the administration is tasked with employing. there's a contract that is signed with the admin and these employees, even though I inherited that driver. And so they are trying to attack you strategically from different angles. So if they can't get you directly, they can't find dirt on you, or you're doing your work and you're engaging and you're connecting with the people, they will attempt to cripple you through other means.
So your driver has been fired. What should you do next?
Well, Mark, I have asked for legal advice on if it's lawful. The thing is, these contracts are done year to year, and your employer can choose, I was told, to whether to renew or not renew your contract. And so it places us between a rock and a hard place. But something will have to be put in place, some system. But I just want people to know what is it that we're going through, and to let them know that despite all of these challenges, we will continue to connect with them. Whether it's policies that they impose on the administrative staff that they must be vaccinated or they can't enter the RDC, and they do it for nurses and nurses who are protesting. Let me just say this. Nurses who were protesting during that period, salaries were cut to 1,000 Guyana dollars for a 3-month period. And even at the RDC, because of the mandatory vaccination policy that they put in, many were locked out of the RDC. And so at one point in time, I forcefully brought in my staff, but I am at the same time saying to them that I took the vaccines, but I do not support you taking these harsh positions on people. Give them time for them to make a decision. So we continue to face these difficulties, but we will not give up our representation for our people. That I can tell you. If I gotta use a bucket and go by the marketplace and sit down and talk to the people, so be it. We will do that.
We can provide you with lots and lots of buckets. We will pool up our resources, whatever little we have, to ensure that you have buckets. Lots of buckets to sit at Wisma Market, Mackenzie Market, all over the top, even on the bridge. Now, quickly, I know we said that we have a one Anthony is saying, Mr. Chairman, he has a quick question for you, sir. How will you ensure that people from the community are not underpaid from these contractors?
That they are not underpaid from the
contractors? How will you ensure that they're not underpaid? Yeah.
This is in reference to the school that is to be built.
The school, yes.
Well, listen, they are labor.
Or not just the school, but they have promised that 80% of the workforce will be from Linden. So I'm assuming that this individual is specifically speaking of this school contract.
So there are labor laws that even if you receive the contract, you have to follow those laws. As I said, it will be boots on the ground, the famous thing. We will be looking over this project with eagle eyes. And all those who are employed on the project, we will ensure that we interact with them to ensure that they're getting what they truly deserve. Right? We will do regular site visits, and they can make contact with us. They have our contact number. And so if they believe that they're treated unfairly, then they make contact with us, and we will make representation for them. And I have
a final question. I have lots of questions for you, but Dr. Hines has had a busy day. I have had a busy day doing much. You also. But Linden now has a new radio station for entertainment and so forth. Would you guys have access to that new radio station?
Well, what I can say to you is that I did an interview on Gordon Mosley program when they launched the radio station, and I was looking for the broadcast to listen back to it, and I couldn't find it. So that's a clear indication that many of the programs that we will not likely be able to, there will be no freedom of expression there. And so we will have to utilize other means. And programs like the live Facebook programs and other.
So as chairman, as leader of Linden, as chairman, and the PNC and the leadership of the party are going to sit down and accept that sort of bullying, that a radio station is there, but the regime has access to it. and you guys in Linden do not have access to it?
Well, I don't think we, in the context, we will sit down and do nothing. We are innovators, and we have found ways to still connect with our base. And many of our followers are on Facebook Live. We will do pamphlets. We will go house to house and meet with them and deliver the message.
You know what? The struggle is not just on Facebook. The struggle is on the ground.
You were just promoting Village Voice, and so I will utilize the Village Voice newspaper to connect with our people on the ground, Mark.
I hope every month you will take at least $1,000 out of your pocket and donate it to that cause.
Of course, I will. And I will encourage all others to do the same.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. Dr. David Hines, what a lovely chat with our chairman, right? The regional chairman.
Yes, I've been following the young man since he took office. As you know, Mark, we are getting up there, and we need these young people to step in and to fill the void. And sometimes, when they come through the political parties, we have to give them some of the little militant stuff from there, to toughen them up a little bit.
Thank you so much, Mr.
I like his spirit. I like his spirit. And I think that is very important when you're in politics, right? You have to have that spirit in you. And then the other things will fall into place if you're willing. But I am impressed with the young man and the way in which he has been able to articulate what he's doing there and so on. And when you have Mark Benchop and David Hines coming at you, and you stand up and you don't run, it means that you got some stuff going on.
Yeah, well, Mark called me out on a program the other night, so I was setting for him, I was on a few of his programs, but he called me out on a program the other night, so I came prepared for him,
Wonderful.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your time. You're always welcome here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Hines.
Yes, sir.
We're all alone for a few minutes more. There's a new television station there in Linden.
Yes.
Of course, entertainment, but the install regime will get their way via this very radio station. How healthy is that, or unhealthy it is for democracy in Linden?
Mark, listen. From democracy, I mean democratically, that is terrible. But one has to ask oneself that why the PPP can go into Linden, and do that kind of stuff and get away with it.
I know why. We all know why.
There is something, visually, there is the optics, that's it, the optics of
the optics. Yeah.
Don't look well. I mean, the PPP can go into Linden and take over radio station and run things and get away with it. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Are we saying that Linden people have gotten soft? Are we saying that the leadership in Linden has gotten soft? What is it? There is something there that I cannot comprehend. Not Linden. And if it's happening in Linden, something is radically wrong.
Something is definitely radically wrong. And I want our listeners to know, and maybe this is the first time you will hear this, Dr. David Hines, because I'm not sure, we have discussed so many things privately. And I'm one of probably your only friend, maybe not one, because there's another friend that you had that you don't take a chance in discussing anything privately at all. You know who that person is,
That's
right?
We're not calling his name.
Yeah. And so I say this because during the coalition's time in office, I practically begged them to give me a frequency for Linden. And you know what they did? I got no frequency. But I see some of these people now are crying some sort of bitter tears that they see Hits and Jams 104.1 or whatever it is up there in Linden operating. When these people who are complaining now had a damn chance, an opportunity to make things right, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think they have a right, the leadership of the coalition, do you think they have a right to complain now when these things happen?
Yeah. No, your question is valid. You know, they may claim they have the right under the Constitution, under natural law, but politically, I mean, you know, they don't have right. And going back to the question you asked me at the beginning of the limitations of political parties, and I began to talk about businesses. The problem here is the businesses that the PNC and the opposition have to depend on are owned by supporters of the PPP. So we are not captive to black business people, because one of the faults of black leadership when they get into office is not promoting a black business class. Because if you, and that's what you hear what you said, you wanted a frequency. So imagine an Indian PPP supporter wanting a frequency in Port Morant and go to the PPP. The PPP would tell them no, but it happens under our government. You know, they do not promote a black business class. So when you now want donations from businesses, you don't have your own supporters owning these businesses. You now have to go to businesses that are supporters of the other party. So when they tell you come off the streets, you gotta come off the streets. Whereas they don't tell the PPP to come off the street because they're hand in gloves with the PPP. And that's the bind that we are in. I am saying the next government headed by the PNC or the opposition that comes to power, one of its first functions is to create a black business class. And you would not be violating anything. Because right now, the business class, less than 10% of the Guyanese business class is African Guyanese. 90% is Portuguese and Indian. So if you're going to create a business class, you will just be leveling or attempting to level the playing field. So it's not discrimination. It is about leveling the playing field. We need black businesses. We need black businesses, especially in communities that are peopled primarily by black people in Linden. You've never told me that. And we have talked about a lot of things. You've never told me that. That you asked for a frequency up there and they said no. Look, you know, we are in this thing together and we are up against a government that doesn't care about our people, that doesn't care about Guyana in general. And we've got to fight to ensure that we have our people represented in government. But we have to let our people know that they cannot squander the power that poor and ordinary people in Linden, that people like yourself and myself help them to get. And once they get in power, they treat the power like theirs, and they do not share the benefits that come with that power to those who help them to get the power.
You know, Dr. Hines, and I want to say this, not because I want to complain. I don't. I come every night and I host my show and I just go about my way because I think the big picture I'm looking at is the people and representation of the people, of which our operator Lemon oftentimes we talk about. But during the time, let's talk about since this regime has been installed. Yeah, we can understand that there's no support at all, advertisement and so forth coming from the government because they're stifling radio stations like myself, like 107.1 FM, which is actually a radio station on the ground. And we have a heck of a lot of stuff we got to do to pay bills. We have a license fee to pay every year, $3.5 million. every year. Something I asked the coalition to address early last year, late last year. Lots of things they turned a blind eye. They just didn't give a damn. But I'll say this publicly. I can understand the non-support from this installed regime. I'm not losing sleep. But to also get no support at all from the main opposition, the coalition, is a sad story as to where our leaders are. Because this station, 107.1 FM, gets absolutely none support from the opposition. But yet every single day, every single night, we continue to fight.
Yes.
I don't know. Sorry.
And a lot of people lose sight of that. A lot of people lose sight of that. Sometimes when we make mild criticisms, as we are doing here, some people get vexed with us and tell us about, airing dirty linen and all that kind of stuff.
It's a fact. Right? We don't get any support. We don't beg them, but we don't get any support.
That's right. That's right.
We give all of them access to 107.1 FM. But if they're watching right now, none of them don't give a damn about our survival here on 107.1 FM. None of them in the opposition, in the leadership of the opposition. Not a single one of them. You're closing. Before we go, splitting up Georgetown and all these things. But you were about to make a point before we get to the splitting up of Georgetown.
No. I was just about to say that. We continue to do what we do because it's the right thing to do, it's the moral thing to do, and it's the thing to do by our people. But we have to let our people understand the struggles that we go through, not just against those who would like to wipe us off the planet if they had a chance, but against our own leadership, which does not appreciate what we do to help them. I mean, I am not saying the PPP is right, but the PPP came to power. All those people who helped regime change, all of them, including enemies of the PPP who helped regime change, the PPP rewarded them. I am not saying it's a morally right thing to do, but I'm saying it's political common sense. I mean, the PPP to Ralph Ramkaran, his own testimony, he couldn't speak for a period of time when they finished launching that acronym. Ralph Ramkaran helped the regime change. And what? The PPP gave him some job, some consult. He doesn't need the money, Ralph is a rich man. But saying, look at the political culture over there, right? And our people don't even say thanks to us for what we do here every night, ultimately for them. Because when power comes, it's they who are the ones who are going to occupy the seats of power. And they don't even say thanks. Sometimes thanks, brothers, for what you all do every night to keep this struggle. You imagine without Mark Benchop and Sherrod Duncan and Kedaki Amsterdam and Gavin and Rickford Brock and all the others who do this thing, and Village Voice. Imagine the last 15 months without these outlets. Our people would have been starved for information because the official opposition is dealing with its internal matters. It's not dealing with the people's business. It's dealing with its internal party business. And so it is we who are out there every night keeping this thing going. Sometimes our own people don't tell us that. Right? You know what I mean?
But yet we continue to do what we do. I remember
yes.
when Mike Pompeo and them were threatening the government. You could hardly find people to come out. These same folks didn't want to come out and speak. And there are nights that I call you up. I say, "Come on, let us talk." Nobody else wanted to talk. Everybody else shut show down for 2 weeks and all these things. But it is what it is. And those leaders in the opposition, they're watching. They know who they are. We don't rush out and beg them for anything. But life goes on. It just goes to show that the fight down doesn't even come just from the PPP. It's coming from those within. We see
Yeah.
the fight every day. This is the only radio station that is not afraid to say that we will give airtime, all of our airtime, to opposition politicians. But some of those same opposition politicians want to challenge us, want to confront us. We don't back down from a fight, right?
Right.
But these
Yeah.
are the same people who are also ungrateful. But we don't complain. We don't complain at all. I just thought that I mentioned that the struggle and the fight is not just against the PPP, but it's some within our own midst. And sadly, it's a heck of a lot of those selfish politicians in the opposition. Now the PPP wants to destroy. The PPP wants to destroy Region 4. Your take on that, sir?
Yeah, it's part of the larger political thing. Those draconian laws that they're attempting to put in place, the gerrymandering that they want to do to Region 4, is the rigging of the election. The next election has started. It's as simple as that. They have started to rig the elections. And we have to be able to frame it in that way. You rig elections not just by voting 2 and 3 times. You rig election by rigging the process, by rigging the system, by rigging the way in which you vote is. They're talking about the PR system, and they want to go back to the first past the post system. Well, by doing what they want to do to Region 4, where the opposition gets most of its votes from, what they're doing is trying to impose a first past the post system within the PR system to dilute it. And one of the reasons we moved from first past the post to PR in 1964, the help of the British, is because it gave an unfair advantage to the PPP. And you remember our friend Donald, a couple of weeks ago, raised that issue at the Cheddi Jagan Research Center when he made the case for a return to the first past the post system. So what they're doing is that they are beginning here to alter the PR system and to impose a form of first past the post which is going to benefit.
That's exactly what it is. We've got to be vigilant in that. So far, the leadership seem to be very quiet, albeit just maybe some written statement sent out. There's no real fight back against that. Again, I'm not surprised at all. Quickly before we go, Dr. David Hines.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic that come December 12th, midnight, or the 13th of December this year, with the new leadership of the People's National Congress Reform, whoever that person is, are you confident of seeing the sort of change that is so needed at this point in time in order to confront this illegitimate PPP regime?
Confident, no. Optimistic, yes, I have to be optimistic. I belong to another party, but I recognize the PNC is the big party. The PNC is the only party on our side, well, not the only, but the party on our side that the PPP is likely to back off, if they say back off, all right? And so therefore, we have to be hopeful, we have to be optimistic that after this Congress, that the PNC get back some of the spuns that it needs in order to protect its people, to protect our people from the onslaught that they're through. I hope that the leaders in mature. What I'm seeing seeping into the race is a kind of contentiousness, is hoping them coming. Now we have to learn to oppose each other without being so over contentious. At the end of the day, you have to sit down in that party and work together. I'm not saying that you have to, cover over your differences. Yes, engage in your differences, but some of the viciousness, and I don't know where it's coming from, but I hope the leaders are mature enough to tone it down. Because if it's not toned down, we may well have a new leader, but it may open up a new front of contentiousness, which is going to be devastating for Black people and for opposition supporters in general. So I am optimistic that our brothers and sisters in the PNC are able to rise to the occasion and to try to temper the kind of contentiousness that is seeping in. So I'm optimistic. I have to be optimistic. Um, more than that, I can't say.
I know you're very emotional, so am I. I'd like to. I'm not a member of the party, but I'd like to. I'd like to be optimistic. Yes, but I myself, I'm not confident of any immediate and drastic changes in confronting the PPP regime. I know some of the contenders are saying that that is going to happen. We all know what happened when that confidence was placed in the hands of Mr. Robert Corbyn. He has had vast amount of political experiences in the trenches and so forth, and one would have thought that he was the perfect candidate back then in confronting the PPP regime. And thousands upon thousands of their supporters were let down as a result of the bad leadership of my friend Robert Corbyn.
Yeah.
You know,
Mark, somebody's asking here, what is my horse in the race? I don't have a horse in the race because, like I said, I don't belong to the PNC. And even as a member of another party, a party will say, well, we prefer this one, we prefer that one. My party, the WPA, doesn't have a horse in the race. I can tell you at a personal level, I have had very good relations with Joe Harmon at the personal level. Aubrey Norton I can call a friend. I've known him now closely for almost 20 years, 2 decades, and probably more. And at a personal level, we got along very well. Richard Van West Charles, I don't have the same kind of relationship with, but whenever we have interacted, it has always been respectful. Basil Williams, I understand, is going to be nominated. But Basil, I don't have the same kind of relationship with Basil, but we worked very closely together in Region 4 on the East Coast during the last election. I know these people. Like I have pointed out, I have good personal relations with them, even though I disagree with them politically. So I don't have a horse in the race. All I am asking for is for a leadership to emerge that can be a leadership to take on the politics of the day, to take on the PPP, because this PPP is not easy. And we need a leadership that is if I'm biased about one thing, Mark, I would like the leadership not to play around with Black people interests. That whole discourse about who will, take the party to Black nationalism, I think is a nonsensical discussion. But I will say this, do not take your supporters for granted. Do not take Black people for granted. You're a national party. You've got to have a national profile. You've got to reach out to Amerindians. You've got to reach out to East Indians, because we need everybody in the movement against oppression. And I suppose if you're PNC, will say you need other ethnic groups inside. But the fact of the matter is the majority of your voters are African Guyanese. You cannot sell them short. You have to find a balance to represent them and to protect them, while at the same time advocating and representing other ethnic groups. That's why we go to school. That's why we are leaders, to exercise our minds, to deal with different difficult dilemmas, because it's a dilemma. How to defend Black people while trying to attract Indians? It's not easy, but it's doable. And you have to exercise your mind. My auntie always tell me, there are things I couldn't do with my mind. And I'm sending you to school so that you can do it. I take that with me to the grave. What she was saying is that there were difficult things I couldn't figure out. And as she said, I would wear one underwear to ensure that you go to school, that you can figure out. And I think sometimes our politicians give up too easily. Oh, we don't want to be black. Nonsense. You can be black and Guyanese. You are black and Guyanese. And there is a way to synthesize the two. Do not throw your people under the bus. And by the same token, do not throw Indians who are fed up of the PPP and want to come over to us, do not throw them under the bus. Find a way to gel the two. It is very important. It is not beyond us. Before I go, Mark, let me make a plug for Village Voice.
1 second. 1 second. Once it's a plug, you got to pay the 30 seconds ad here. You guys got to pay us because we also need a plug. We also, as a radio station that got close to $4 million, we got to pay for our license fees. Over $3.5 million. You got to pay us now to make a plug for the Village Voice. Go right ahead.
Let me first of all make a plug for 101.
107.
107.1.
Yeah.
Marcus said it, this is not a plaything. He's got to come up to pay that $3.7 million.
About a little over 3.5 million. Yeah.
$3.5 million per year. That's a lot of money to pay for a license. And so therefore, you all have got to pitch in to help us with this thing, Don't make Mark got to beg you all.
And the thing is, they know that I don't do that. They know. And so when I say that Lemon ran away last week because he didn't get paid, right, they should know that, we can't expect the politicians, them in the opposition, to understand what the struggle is like. Because it's like they don't give a damn about the struggle. They just don't give a damn about our survival. Yeah. And most of them, Dr. Hines, and sorry that we have to say it like it is, most of them are not thankful at all.
No.
They just
yeah.
You were talking about Village Voice, yes?
Yeah, but before I go to Village Voice, I want to say the foot soldiers, the people who are on these programs. We know that you all are sufferers and strugglers, like all of us are. But $1, $2, $5. And Mark and I were talking off the air, we both come up in villages, and one of the things they tell you, don't beg. It's hard to beg. It's one of the most difficult things to do to beg. So don't make us beg you all, right? Just like you all go to church and you all put that collection in that plate. And it's important to serve your God, keep your churches going. To also keep these institutions that we are creating here going. And don't put us in the funny situation of having to beg. So that people will laugh and say, look, the one Mark and that go there begging like a dog. What I mean?
Well, we does, and there's a way in doing it, and our listeners are smart enough. When we say that Lemon missing in action,
yes,
we already know. And right now, Lemon has left us halfway through the program and gone. He's gone.
Right.
So you were saying about Village Voice, sir.
Yeah, we were talking about Village Voice. Village Voice, this new newspaper, it's on the stands weekly. We just come out on Sundays. And it has been the home to those of us who have been kicked out of the mainstream media. They're trying, but one of the reasons that the paper is not able to expand, it's not getting government ads. We don't have an opposition business class, a black business class, a big bad business class, so we're not getting very many ads from there. So the paper has to now depend on subscriptions. So it is about to launch a daily news, online news, where the news is going to be sent to your phones, to your emails. You get the news there every morning in a package. And the paper is asking you to just take out a subscription to support it. It's going to be, I think, about $2 per week and $8 or $10 per month. That's it. The Star News does it, and the Star News people pay, especially those overseas, to read the paper. So on behalf of the Village Voice, I'm asking, I'm begging although I don't like to beg, I'm begging you all to please take out a subscription. You're going to be contacted, or you can please contact Village Voice via the email on its website and ask to take out a subscription. And like I said, it's not going to be anything more than $8 or $10 a month, if that much, so that you can get that paper every morning in your phone electronically. Like I said, there are no government ads. The little ads that come
David, Dr. Hines, why should it be that Village Voice that's on the ground, that's actually printing, circulating in Guyana, no government ads, none whatsoever? Radio stations such as 107.1 FM, this station, no government ads, none whatsoever. I don't know. What should our people do? Should we call on them to boycott the Chronicle, boycott the Guyana Times, boycott businesses? And these, should we have to go to that?
Yes, we'll have to get there. We will have to get there, Mark. We will have to get there very shortly. I think Christmas is coming, and I think those businesses on Regent Street and in Georgetown, we have to tell our people, buy only what you definitely want. You got to take out the blind last year, Christmas. Use that and buy from these people because they do not support our interests.
But you know something, Dr. Hine?
Yeah.
There are folks who might be looking and they're laughing and they say, look, them a beg, look how them a beg, you know, and politicians do beg, rich politicians and all of these things. Now, I'm not begging. I'm not begging, right? We are not begging. Well, sort of, right?
Yeah.
But if the struggle is to continue, and we're talking about those of us who actually have a radio station and a newspaper, the struggle is not easy, but we don't complain. I don't complain. You don't complain. Lincoln Lewis doesn't complain. But it's time that our people, the supporters, I see a lot of them here, whether it's Gladys Prasad, whether it's Keith Isidan, I know Keith Isidan and all these guys, they do give back to communities. Right. Brenda Cassie and all of these people. Because it seems as though there is this tendency amongst persons of African descent, me giving David Hines nothing, me giving Ben Sharp nothing. But other groups don't behave like that.
They do not. Yeah.
Gosh, continue with it.
Yes, I'm asking. I'm saying that if you say, look, I got a $20 this week, and you give 5 to Mark, you know, you give a 5 to Politics 101, you give a 5 to Village Voice, you give a 5 to Gerald or whoever else.
Or if they get $10. If they got $20, they give Ben Shop Radio the 10 and split the other 10 between you guys. Because we have a hefty bill every year, almost $4 million.
And what so here's
where now we're going to fight for this little donate. That is where we are fighting. Lemon already quit. He's gone. Right here. Let me give a quick test. Because I'll have Lincoln on to talk about the Village Voice and how people can subscribe as well, just as you have started. But let me show you how some of our people stay. You see, this is Ben Sharp Radio. That is the Zelle account. This is the Cash App. You're seeing everything there. I'm next to my phone right now. You know, up to this point, we have been trying to make this point for about 20 minutes. Do you know I haven't heard a single tingling?
No, they're making life easy. They're making life easy. They'll come true. All people will come true.
Your closing remarks, Dr. David.
Your closing remarks is that at the end of the day, Mark, this struggle is bigger than you, me, those who we have been mildly critical of tonight. It's bigger than all of us. This is about keeping our country together. Wherever we go, wherever we roam, there is Guyana. And the beautiful thing about technology these days is that we don't have to be physically in Guyana 24/7, 365 days to be in Guyana. You and I wake up in the morning and the first thing we think is Guyana. We go to bed at night and the last thing we think is Guyana. I tell the story when that brother was shot the other day, or in Boston, and you woke me up. You woke me up and asked me if I heard that news. And I said, what news you talking about? And you said, get up. And I got up and came straight onto your program. And you can do that. You can call me and wake me up because I won't tell you bye. Don't call me at these ungodly hours. Because we have benefited from Guyana. Mark, you grew up on the quarantine. I grew up on the East Coast there in Buxton. If somebody had come to our schools and tell us that in 2021, the two of you would have been sitting on a radio station talking to the world, we would have told them go to hell. But Guyana, man,
people remember me from school.
Oh, you did start practicing from school.
Ask J.R. Crawford and a lot of people who know me from the quarantine as a little boy. They said this by here. He talked, he loves to debate. People don't know me. They knew that I would have been here. They knew.
But I'm saying, Guyana's, we would not be who we are today without our country.
Fair enough. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we are poor people children, and all they wanted for us is to go get an education and get a teaching work, go work for the government. And some of us have gone beyond that. We have now become spokespersons for our people and other people across the globe. And we have to give thanks to our country. And the way we give that thanks is to do what we do here every day, every night. And I want to thank Guyana for that and thank Guyanese people for believing in us.
And not only that, to the village. The village at that time, anybody could have corrected you in that village.
Oh, yeah.
Ask J.R. Crawford, ask Clyde Pistano, all the other people from the quarantine there. The village corrected that child. And we must get back to where the village, because it takes a village to do that sort of raising. Dr. David Hines, we will overcome sometime. We don't bring all of our problems and all of our troubles out there because a lot of people don't know it is just not easy, but we don't complain, right? And it is sad, though, that those who are part of the opposition just do not give a damn about our survival. Had it not been for the strength and the commitment and dedication and the sort of patriotism that we have, we would have long folded. Some of us would have probably gone drinking milk or soup or eating food and compromising ourselves on the other side. We just do not do that at all. We just do not do that. But again, we are thankful. I'm glad for the Village Voice that's there on the ground. It is available in Andrew's Supermarket every Sunday, bright and early. Go down to Andrew's Supermarket and get your copy. We will have Lincoln on to talk about where else the Village Voice can be purchased for $140. Even if you got $200, leave the change with Lincoln. Or who? These are folks who are not going to get rich because they have to have money to publish that paper every week, once a week. And they have no government ads, none whatsoever, none. Anyways, enough of that. I think I must say, Janet and all the folks, Miss Simon and we're getting a little tingling here. We're getting a little tingling.
You're getting a little tingling.
I must admit, we're getting a little tingling. I'm looking here, and the minute that we said that too, guess who came right back on the job?
Lemon.
Lemon is back on the job. Lemon is back on the job, right? Dr. David Hines, we thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that you do also, because 101, politics 101 and so forth, it is just not easy. I know Kadaki does his thing with the Buxton wake-up stuff. It is just not easy at all. But we don't complain. We look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is to ensure that we do not allow the installed PPP regime to get away with the sort of things they have gotten away with in the past. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
Dr.
you, my brother. It's always my pleasure.
Good. Yeah. All right, Dr. David Hines there for you guys. Did a little begging in the end. It is what you call not just begging. It is what you call good begging for a good cause. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to have these programs on so that we can continue to expose the corrupt and the racist PPP regime. Look at the Village Voice. It is not easy to print this, you know. It is not easy to print it. And I'll tell you guys a story. Sunday morning or late Saturday night, when a lot of us, well, I sleep very late. Very late. I go to bed like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. But, you know, politics, and occasionally, right? Good. But anyways, politics. When a lot of you guys are sleeping, Lincoln Lewis is out beating the streets. Beating the streets. Sharing the newspapers, distributing the newspapers, and trying to hustle to get back the little money so that he can have sufficient to print again. People, we've got to do better than that. We've got to do better than that. The radio station, it's on the ground. The struggle and the message ought to be on the ground as well. That is why it's important that the Village Voice and 107.1 FM, I'm singling out those two. There are other programs, yes, but there's a reason. Benchop Radio is actually a radio station on the ground. Village Voice is a newspaper on the ground. It doesn't mean that you cannot pay attention to others, like Sherrod Duncan or Kadaki or Dr. David Hines. They are social media platform. I'm not saying that nobody should not bless those brothers up, so don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong at all. But I'm focusing on 107.1, an actual radio station. I'm not being selfish here at all, so don't read me into that. Where the overhead's way bigger because we have big bills. We actually have a fee to pay every year, close to $3.7 million every single year. Every single year. But thank you so much, though, for your contributions. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to just say thanks to our guest, Dr. David Hines. Thanks to all of you who are listening right now. And just to say that we are pleased that Lemon is back on the job. Thank you guys so much. God bless you. I'll be back tomorrow evening. Tomorrow evening is nomination night. Nomination night. We will hear and we will see who else will be nominated for positions. But for those in the PNCR who are vying for the leadership, too much pettiness, too much small boy politics. It's got to stop. It's really got to stop. Not because somebody doesn't support X person mean that people got to force people and get vexed because they don't support your candidate or whatever. What I hope, though, is that for the good of the country and for the good of those who are members of the PNCR, that at the end of the Congress, that there will be no love lost. And that whoever becomes the next leader Yep, sorry about that. We lost that contact there, but that folks will be able, like like I've said, to put their differences aside and work in the best interest of the entire PNCR and the entire coalition. I've got to go now. I'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time. Thank you all for spending this hour, close to 2 hours with us. Thanks to David Hines, thanks to the chairman of Region Number 10, and all of you. God bless you, and God bless our beautiful country. So long.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. Forgot a crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock crow, dog a bark, donkey bray, horse and they even duck a quack. Cock crow, dog a bark, donkey bray, horse and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. The naga jackass yard for fetch the load. Cockle shy hand,